Welcome to Eye on Health here on Dubai Eye 103.8, brought to you by Arab Health and MedLab Middle East. I'm Helen Farmer, and we're talking women's health and femtech in particular. Now, women make up nearly 50% of the world's population, and the economic burden for women's diseases is currently more than a monstrous $500 billion. Unfortunately, of all the funding for research and development in healthcare products and services, only 4% is said to be invested in women's health. To find out why this is, we're joined by Dr. Reenita, who's the partner and senior vice president of healthcare and life sciences at Frost and Sullivan. She is known as a healthcare evangelist, voted in the top 100 women in health tech and femtech, and is the co-author of The State of Femtech and a board member of Arab Health. So who better to guide us through the topic? Lovely to have you with us, Dr. Reenita. Can I ask you why you are so passionate about this space and why you've dedicated so much of your life's work to women's health and femtech?
Thank you. The reason is that I think the healthcare system, I've been working in healthcare advisory for more than 25 years, and I just believe that the healthcare system was created by men for men 200 years ago. And women's health is under in every way. If you look at it, we're understudied, we're under-recognized, we're underdiagnosed, we are undertreated, we are underrepresented, and we're underfunded. And I didn't really realize the magnitude of this, but I think as time passed, I looked at it from a business and commercial opportunity. And the reason that we are under in everything could be a number of reasons, but I think the biggest reason is that we don't look at women's health as a commercial opportunity. We don't look at it as a population. Today, we talk about population health in all the conferences and meetings that we go to, but we never ever talk of women as a population. And as we switch the dialogue to population health, I think we will start getting recognized in all of these fields that I talked about.
Can I ask then, how do you think the world of healthcare would be different if that funding was reallocated? What kind of advancements, opportunities, how would life be easier, less painful for women if there was an equal playing field in terms of research and funding, Doctor?
I think, first of all, our bodies are very different than male bodies. The way we think, the way we express ourselves, the way we feel is very different. So the way drugs are given on us, it's basically tested on men and then they're given to us, and it doesn't react the same way. We also have hormones that men don't have. We go through different phases of life that many men don't go through. And therefore, our challenges are very different. So I wouldn't even look at the way healthcare is today and just make it for women. I would really look at gender specific healthcare and build digital twins around women and around their specific, everything, their physiology, their psychology, their anatomy, all of that.
It's interesting that you phrase that as an opportunity because you're absolutely right. And it's staggering to think about just, how recently women haven't been part of that picture, whether it is, crash test dummies in car simulations, or as you're saying, the drug trials. Can we talk about the role of femtech? And I wondered if you could explain what femtech is and I guess what it means to you, if you wouldn't mind defining that for us, Dr. Reenita.
Sure. Sure. So femtech really refers to a field of healthcare where we use female technology. It was the name that was coined by Ida Tin in 2014, because she needed a space for us to look at it. And there was no space. There was just women's health was the largest space. It really means any kind of device or any kind of product that is a hardware or a software that enables a woman to become empowered. So it has some level of monitoring, it has some level of diagnosis. It's primarily putting healthcare into the hands of women and empowering us to know what is going on in our bodies and take charge of that.
Can you talk about any real life applications that people listening today might be familiar with? And it might be something that we might be using without realizing is femtech, or something that you're excited about in the space right now.
So a lot of femtech today is around infertility and menstruation. In fact, if you look at it, about 60% of femtech is around that area. There's so many companies that are building products that help you to look at your ovulation cycles, that help you to look at what treatments there are, what stage of egg extraction could be happening. So there's all different products around infertility. There are products around menstruation also that are targeting young girls ever since they start their menstrual cycles. But what I'm most excited about is not so much about women being in their spring of life, because all of healthcare, we focused on women being young and productive, and that's all we look at. My excitement about femtech is really about the second stage of life, the autumn of life. That is where women are in menopause.
Hmm.
And there's so little work done in that aspect. And there's some amazing companies that are now beginning to be able to realize how much of opportunity that is for women. There's over 1 billion women entering menopause every single year.
And
And we
every and
have no way.
exactly. I feel like it's such an important conversation. We were discussing menopause on the show last week, and I find it so overwhelming to think about how many symptoms there are for perimenopause and menopause, how much confusion there is. But to come back to your point about being an opportunity, certainly financially, this is a group of women who are probably in their earning prime, in, as you so beautifully put it, the autumn of their life, and so underserviced because there's such gaps in doctors' knowledge when it comes to this life stage. So when we're talking about, I mean, I've got my phone right here, tracking periods or, tracking ovulation. How could that kind of idea and technology translate to women into their 40s, 50s, 60s and beyond? What are some of the signs, symptoms, physical and mental, that we need to be tuned into? And what role do you think femtech can play?
So there are almost 38 different symptoms that women have for menopause, and no one woman's menopause journey is the same. So everyone has different symptoms. So whether it's night sweats, whether it's hot flashes, whether it's dry skin, whether it's constipation, whether it's low libido, I mean, there's so many. Every part of your body gets dry eye. Recently I did a study looking at dry eyes, and nobody thinks of dry eyes happening to menopausal women, but it's a very common thing. And we don't have any drugs that are testing the impact of hormones on eyes, for example.
Well, that's
So
an
what we
interesting
could,
point. Sorry to interrupt. So it's interesting to think about drugs not being tested on women, and then certainly drugs not being tested on women with fluctuating or depleted hormones as well, which adds another level of complication, presumably.
right. So I think menopause, there are a lot of interesting companies that are building apps and software and providing assistance to women to go to the right doctors who are specialized to try to find the right treatments for you. So there's amazing number of companies now that have come up, and I do think that's an exciting space.
Hmm.
Also, I think the area that we really need to focus on today is cardiovascular. Cardiovascular is not a man's disease. 1 in 4 or 5 women suffer from cardiovascular disease, and 1 in 5 women die of cardiovascular disease in the world. And yet we look at it through the lens of men. So I think it's very important for us to start looking at cardiovascular disease in relation to hormones and in relation to menopause, because a lot of this happens during the same time.
You mentioned earlier about the importance of women feeling empowered, having access to their data, to their information. Do think there is a bit of reluctance, especially in the older age group, about, what tech is safe. Is my data protected? And we've unfortunately seen over the last few years, really heartbreaking stories about women who might have been tracking their periods, finding out they were pregnant, suffering a loss, and still being targeted with ads, for example, for nappies, 8 months later.
Right.
What reassurances would you give to women who might be feeling reluctant around femtech?
I think there's a lot of benefits, and I think the benefits outweigh the weaknesses, and we have to give this a chance to be able to take control. And yes, there will be a lot of issues around it, around privacy. I agree with you, but we have to work around it. We
Hmm.
have to work, we have to build the regulations. We need to have gender-specific funding in the government. Governments do not create gender-specific funds. That's the first step to making change.
I was just listening to a podcast yesterday, and it was talking about the book, about the publishing industry, and it was talking about the movie industry, and actually the people in power who are shockingly mostly male, tend to invest in projects run by people that look like them. And actually, when you to run the numbers, things can be a lot more exciting, a lot more profitable when we're looking at. And isn't it mad we're thinking about women being a diverse group when it's 50% of the population? But for people to be taking a leap which is madness because, as you say, it's so commercially interesting. What attitudes do you think need to change? Is it a case of there being more women in the boardroom, which, hopefully that is improving, or is it a case of men understanding the financial viability of focusing on us?
I think we have to take a commercial angle to this. We have to show the financial dollars and cents on this and the potential for that and be able to do that. Obviously, it's still a long road in terms of education, but change is happening. It's still very slow. Our numbers are still very small, but it's still growing. I can tell you when I started writing about menopause in 2012 on Forbes, I did an article about it being a big growth opportunity. There was not a single company, and no one even bothered to even talk about my article. And now we have some mainstream companies, we have unicorns in this industry. So I'm very excited with the progress we've made in a decade. So I do hope for our daughters that this, and our sons as well, that this change will come as
Me
we move
too.
forward.
Are there any companies that you think deserve any special recognition? You obviously have access to amazing experts and peers. I love a recommendation, Dr. Anita. Is there anything that you think we should be getting our hands on, downloading or researching?
I think NABDA Health, our local company right here, has been wonderful, wonderful business model. And Sophie is great. I mean, she's got the right attitude and, she's working for the region, in the region. And there's a long way that they have to go, but I think they're on the right track. That's what we need. We need access, which is both a virtual community as well as an in-person.
Absolutely right. Women are busy. We don't need any more obstacles in our way to getting, the advice, the treatment that we need. And you're talking there about the last 10 years in terms of the conversation changing. If you were to get your crystal ball out, where do you think femtech and women's health is going to be in the next decade?
I hope that we'll be at a point of having some digital twins that are gender specific. I hope we'll be at a point of being able to focus from the sick care model to the prevention and the healthcare model with all the work going on in diagnostics and genetics and genomics. I mean, there's a huge revolution going on overall, and some of it is moving and coming into the health women's health area. So
Mhm.
I do think in 10 years we will be practicing precision health whereby the right product will come to us at the right time and completely be personalized, and we'll be able to predict what's going to happen to us and our bodies using AI. I'm hoping.
I'm hoping too, and if not for me, as you say, for my daughters. Dr. Anita, based on all of your work, all of your research, is there anything that we haven't talked about today that you'd love to communicate to listeners that you think is really crucial information or an insight when it comes to femtech in particular? I just feel like it'd be remiss not to pick your brains for a final time.
Thank you. I want to talk about mental health because I think we're in a world today. It came out in COVID, but I think that we're still breaking a lot of taboos, especially in the part of the world that we're sitting in today. And I think it has huge implications in your overall physical health. And people don't understand that mental health leads to physical health, and one leads to the other. And there's amazing resources available on virtual digital sites that can help women. And women face mental health issues much larger than men do, and the type of anxiety and depression they go through are very different. So there are resources available that definitely women should reach out to or form groups or network and build virtual communities around this. So I think mental health is a big one for me.
I think that's a really important one to highlight. And actually, the role of technology, as you're saying, whether it's an online community, whether it is, using your phone for, mindfulness and meditation, or indeed going to telehealth and having appointments that way. For busy women who might not be prioritizing themselves, every little bit helps in terms of getting that information, getting that treatment. Because as we know, healthy women mean a healthy society. And it's about time we started looking at this and just how much more can be done. But I want to say thank you for all of the work that you've done in this space. Such an honor to speak to you, Dr. Nita. And for anyone that wants to research further, are there any resources that we could point people in the direction of?
Yeah, my office community, we have what we call a growth council think tank that is catered to women's health. We run programs every single month. Last month, we ran a program on the work that we're doing in AI in women's health. So the website is www.frost.com, and you can put in women's health. and you'll be
Thank
able to
you.
get onto that
Thank you
site.
so much, Dr. Reenita Das, Partner and Senior Vice President of Healthcare and Life Sciences at Frost and Sullivan. She's also an author and is a board member at Arab Health. Thank you so much for your time, and join us again next week for more Eye on Health here on Dubai Eye 103.8, brought to you by Arab Health and MedLab Middle East. I'm Helen Farmer, wishing you a wonderful day ahead.
By Eye 103.8.
Join the conversation.